Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Can the elves in the foyer join us in the sanctuary? Thanks, everyone. It's December at Unity. Woohoo! Isn't that fun? I walked in this morning, I knew that the holiday decorating was happening yesterday, but when I walked in, I just thought, oh, wow, this is so sweet. So thanks to all of the holiday decorators yesterday. The elves were at work in the foyer. Yay, thank you. We have about a gazillion announcements and clipboards today. So everybody who is going to say something, begin lining yourselves up right here so we can move quickly. And while this is underway, I'd like to greet any newcomers to Unity today. So if you'd like us to know, if you wave your hand in the air, Kamina will put a welcome packet in your hand. Any newcomers here up front? I feel like an auctioneer in the back. So here's one, Kamina, right here. Welcome to Unity of Fort Collins. And folks online, we welcome you as well. We know we have a large group of people, sometimes as many as 100 visitors per week watching our services. So there are as many of you out there as there are in here. So welcome to our online community. And if you ever feel like it, come visit here in person. All right. I'm going to proceed with announcements.
Hi, I'm Gerald. I'm the team leader for the finance team. And I wanted to let you know how my announcement went last week when I announced both to our foundational donors and to our matching donors that the end of the year program is on. As of today, we have $6,500 in seed money. There you go, seed money. And so for those of us who weren't part of that, let's write on our checks or make note when you want to give to the year-end fund, which is what we're going to call this. Just write year-end fund on it. And we will even, Reverend Jim has said, I could make a slide, and we'll even make a slide so you can see how we do as the year goes on. You'll feel like you're in the volunteer fire department. So it's going well, and that's where we are today. Thank you all for your support.
And I'm Lil, and I'm here to remind you that we're going to be Christmas caroling at Red Tail Ponds this Friday night. I'm going to give you more details when you sign up. And after and that's at 5:30, and we want people to bring cookies. And if or cookies or snacks or something like that for the people at Red Tail Ponds. And afterwards, we're inviting you to our house, and we can have a little bit of Christmas there too. But you'll get all the information when I email you. And if you can't come, please let me know. Thanks.
Good morning, I'm Leanne, and I'm here to tell you how you're going to help us pull off a Christmas miracle. Because today is our only passing of the clipboard for next Sunday's, what we used to call a craft fair and bake sale, but we're calling it a spiritual holiday market and spiritual book fair. So we want people to sign up to bring anything food related, cookies. Robert's already promised his famous crack candy. You can't miss it. Every year we have that. You can also bring small handcrafted items. And then we need some folks to work different parts of the fair, helping set up and clean up afterward. We're also going to have a book fair, which will try to get people to move down this hallway through the library, the roomy room, and even all the way into the office, where we'll have some new books for sale for Christmas. So I think everything's on here, and I'm going to start the clipboard this way. So please make sure it comes all the way around, since it is a miracle happening.
Good morning, I'm Kimber, and I'm one of the members of the outreach team, and I don't have a clipboard. Yay. I'm here to remind everyone of our donations that we're gathering for the Realities for Children and the Larimer Humane Society Food Bank. In the entryway, we have some bins or boxes for donations, and they also accept gift cards. And yesterday we set up a giving tree here right on the end with Clifford the red dog and then the little kitty cat, because we don't want to forget our critters. We're gathering donations, and we'll be gathering donations for Animal Friends Alliance through Christmas Eve. The other two, Realities for Children and the Larimer Food Bank, we will be gathering that up and sending it off the end of next Sunday's service. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Dale, aka Dahlia, or maybe it's Dahlia, aka Dale. Anyway, I'm one of your regular greeters, and I'm the coffee maker. So I'd like a show of hands. I have been pouring out a good amount of coffee and decaf that I make every Sunday. So I'm proposing that I just make a half a pot of regular, and those who require or prefer decaf, that you bring your own. Can I see how many decaf members I have here? Okay, well, so you are hereby advised, if you want decaf coffee at service on Sundays until our membership that comes in-house grows, you have to bring your own. Otherwise, I will be making a half a pot of regular coffee here on. Thank you very much.
The other thing you should know about coffee is that we're an informal community, so you are welcome to have coffee in the sanctuary. You can go get it, warm your hands, sip it through the service. So coffee is kind of a thing here. So feel free to have some. And tea too. Yes. So today, well, one other announcement. You will be seeing, and probably have seen, more mention of the Polestar community. And Polestar does the kirtan meditation kinds of things. So I'm not going to go into a whole thing because they're a big community, but they found us. We are like-minded folks. And they have moved their community from Hawaii and are planning to create a community here in Fort Collins at the site of the Happy Heart Farm. It's basically a co-housing community with a little spiritual bent to it. But we have welcomed the Polestar folks to join. They're us, we're them. It feels like a close kind of spiritual alignment. So when you see things in the bulletin that relate to them, just know that we've had this additional group of folks who have joined us and who welcome us at their events. So thank you. Anybody here from Polestar? All right, not this morning. Great. All right, today is one of my favorite days of the year when Leanne Gable reads Hong Duk to bring us into the Christmas season. So I'm so glad that you're doing that. What a lovely tradition. All right, Jim's doing the service this morning. We have a guest vocalist, musician, Elise Wonder, who's working with us this morning. So let the wild rumpus begin. No, I have to do the centering prayer. No wild rumpus. Centering prayer. Our unity centers us in light and peace, allowing us to recognize our God within and to radiate that love to the world. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. My name's Elise. It's lovely to be here. You getting some guitar in there? There we go. You're broken down and tired from living life on a merry-go-round. You can't fight the fire, but I see it in your eyes, so we gon' walk it out and mountain and mountains, and all rise like the day, all rise up. In spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll bring this world to its feet and mountains and move mountains, and all rise up, all rise like the day, all rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Oh, for you. We have each other, for that we have each other. We will rise, we will rise, and all rise like the day, all rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. we have a reading from Leanne.
Okay. Thanks for letting me continue this little tradition. I look forward to this too. This story is from All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum. And it doesn't have a title, so we call it Hong Duk because he's the main character. A Sunday afternoon it was, some days before Christmas, with rain, with wind, with cold, winter's gloom. Things to-do list was long and growing like an unresistant mold. Temper short. Bioindex negative. Horoscope reading suggested caution. And the Sunday paper suggested dollars, death, and destruction as the day's litany. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Fa la 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 la. This holy hour of Lord's Day bliss was jarred by a pounding at the door. Now what? Deep sigh. Opening it, resigned to accept whatever bad news lies in wait, I am nonplussed. A rather small person in a cheap Santa Claus mask, carrying a large brown paper bag outthrust. Trick or treat! Santa mask shouts. What? Trick or treat! Santa mask hoots again. Tongue-tied, I stare at this apparition. He shakes the bag at me, and I dumbly fish out my wallet and find $1 to drop in the bag. The mask lifts, and it's an Asian kid with a $10 grin taking up most of his face. Want to hear some caroling? He asks in sing-song English. I know him now. He belongs to a family that settled into the neighborhood by the Quakers last year. Boat people, Vietnamese, I believe. He stopped by at Halloween with his brothers and sisters, and I filled their bags. Hong Duk is his name. He's maybe 8. At Halloween, he looked like a wise man, with a bathrobe on and a dish towel around his head. Want to hear some caroling? I nod, envisioning an octet of urchin refugees hiding in the bushes, ready to join their leader in uplifted song. Sure, where's the choir? I'm it, says he, and he launched forth with an up-tempo chorus of jingle bells at full lung power. This was followed by an equally enthusiastic rendering of what I swear sounded like Hark the Herry Angels Sing. And finally, a soft voiced, reverential singing of Silent Night. Head back, eyes closed. From the bottom of his heart, he poured out the last strains of sleep and heavenly peace into the gathering night. Wet-eyed, dumbstruck by his performance, I pulled a $5 bill out of my wallet and dropped that into the paper bag. In return, he produced half a candy cane from his pocket and passed it solemnly to me. Flashing his $10 grin, he turned and ran from the porch, shouted, "God bless you," and "Trick or treat," and was gone. Who was that masked kid? Hong Duk, the one-man choir, delivering Christmas door to door. I confess that I'm usually a little confused about Christmas. It's never made a lot of sense to me. It's kind of unreal. Ever since I got the word about Santa Claus, I've been a closet cynic at heart. Singing about riding in a one-horse open sleigh is ludicrous. I've never seen one, much less ridden in one. I've never roasted chestnuts by an open fire, and I wouldn't know how to if I had one. Wandering wise men raise my suspicions, and shepherds who spend their lives hanging about with sheep are a little strange. Never seen an angel either. The appearance of a newborn king doesn't interest me. I'd just as soon settle for some other politicians. Singing about things I've never seen or done or wanted. Dreaming of a white Christmas I've never known. Christmas isn't very real. And yet, I'm too old to believe in it and too young to give up on it, too cynical to get into it and too needy to stay out of it. Trick or treat. After I shut the door, I come near hysteria, laughter and tears and that funny feeling you get when you know that once again Christmas has come to you. Right down the chimney of my midwinter hovel comes Saint Hong Duk. He's confused about the details, like me, but he's very clear about the spirit of the season. It's an excuse to let go and celebrate, to throw yourself into holiday with all you have, wherever you are. I'm it, says he. Where's Christmas, I ask myself. I'm it, comes the echo. I'm it. Head back, eyes closed, voice raised in whatever song I can muster the courage to sing. God, it is said, once sent a child upon a starry night, that the world might know hope and joy. I'm not sure that I quite believe all that, or that I believe in all the baggage heaped upon that story during 2,000 years. But I am sure that I believe in Hong Duk, the one-man Christmas choir, shouting trick or treat door to door. I don't know who or what sent him, but I know that I am tricked through the whimsical mischief of fate into joining the choir that sings of joy and hope. Through a child, I have been treated to Christmas.
I believe in open doors. I'm taking off the screen. I'm willing to let the world come inside and touch my life. I will no longer be defined by what someone else believes that I am. And now that I have lost the way I am light as a feather, it's time to elevate. So bird rise, lift your eyes, spread your wings and prepare to fly. This is the moment of your life. Go ahead and fly. I believe in open doors. I'm outside of the box. What has not demolished me simply polished me. Now the clearer I can see. I'll no longer be defined by what someone else believes that I am. And now that I have dropped the weight, I am light as a feather. It's time to elevate. So bird rise, lift your eyes, spread your wings and prepare to fly. This is the moment of your life. Go ahead and fly. I
The first one was Andra Day, The Rise Up, and then this last one was India Ari.
Well, thank you, Elise Wonder. You've got a very appropriate last name, Wonder. What a wonder. Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here on this beautiful December morning. Before I start and tell you an interesting story, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for the acknowledgement that Sharon and I have been here for a year. We had 30, 40 cards. We got a gift certificate. We got cake. Wow. You are the most wonderful, wonderful, kind, generous congregation that I certainly have ever run into anywhere. Talking about running into things, I want to tell you a story. And I don't know if I'm responsible for, what did you say? Something's going to break loose, Anne?
The wild rumpus.
The wild rumpus. I didn't know that I was responsible for the wild rumpus today, but we'll see how we can do. In June of 2019, Sharon and I moved to Colorado. We moved here from Arizona. And then not too long after that, the wild rumpus appeared. And you know what I'm talking about. The pandemic appeared suddenly, March of 2020. And so during that winter just before that, I had the privilege of teaching a class here at Unity of Fort Collins. But then the pandemic come along, and for the next 2 years, there wasn't much going on. We were kind of restricted to our own homes. And during that period of time, I happened to fall into a subject matter that kind of interested me. And it had to do with the future of the church. There's a lot of things being written. What's going to happen in the middle of this pandemic? Where's the future? Where are we going? And whenever you buy a book on Amazon on a subject, you get all of these other books suggested to you. And I didn't realize at the beginning how many books were being written by various authors about the church of the future, where this thing called the church was heading. And then besides that, there are all kinds of blogs and internet sites, emails, etc., all being written on the same subject. And the subject was not very positive. I didn't know I was ever going to be a church minister because churches were closing up wholesale. The churches were bleeding people. They were leaving the church. And that subject continued to come up for me, for some reason, for some 2 years. Then a year ago, it was in the first Sunday of November, Sharon and I were invited to this congregation to help out a bit. That was the task, just to help out a bit. And the first Sunday that I arrived here, I realized something. I was coming face to face with the church of the future. You have no idea. You have no idea when we talk to colleagues of Unity churches and see all that is being written about the church of the future and how churches are going to attract folks in the future. You have no idea how close you are to that church of the future. You're to be congratulated in so many ways of keeping this church together through a pandemic, through a change in ministers, and all the other things that you've experienced in the past 2 or 3 years. You're a miracle. You really are. So today I thought I would mention some of the things that we have been through during this past year, we have decided, your council has decided, that we needed to further solidify what you are already doing. And that's a team concept. Up here at the beginning, you had several of your team leaders sharing with you events that are happening during December and into the coming year as a result of 5 or 6 people meeting together and planning for the future of this ministry. Things are happening. But on the other side of the coin, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, there's an organization called Religious News Service. And they put out regular news releases that go all over the world. They get shared with, for instance, the press organizations, United Press and others. Here's their latest release. Thursday, real recent. Why Americans are leaving their churches. And this entire news release is about that very subject. Why Americans are leaving their churches. They tell us that for every one individual without a religious background that comes and joins a church, for every one, there's 26 that are leaving. 26 that are leaving. Now this congregation's different. That's not happening here. But this is the current state of all religions on the face of this planet. So what's the difference? Where are we going? What are we going to do to make church more relevant? Something that our younger generation can relate to. And I believe it's relevancy. Generation X, young people, do they find what's relevant for them in the world today? With all the problems in the world, with all the political upheaval, with wars going on, what is the church doing to step into those situations that are real life situations today, tomorrow? And so the young people of our country aren't finding the answers within religious organizations. So what do we have to do? Do we have to practice our faith in a different way? Red Rock Church in Denver believes so. So on a Sunday morning there, whenever you walk into that church, the minister's standing there in flip-flops and holy jeans, and the music becomes rock music. And it's a very expressive worship service that's geared to guys in their 30s. But they believe that needs to be changed. They believe their worship service needs to be changed to relate to young people. Does it mean we have to organize our communities in a different way? To include more young people in whatever we're doing? I believe that it is much more than whether you are drinking coffee in the pews this morning, or whether or not we have organized the council and they're using this consensus decision making. That's not what's important. That's not what's relative to the folks that are elsewhere on this Sunday morning. I believe it's more about seeing their beauty, their input, what they're interested in, seeing what they bring to the table, listening deeply to them. In other words, being more relevant. And most of all, and I'm going to emphasize this through the talk this morning, it's us shifting from a business enterprise to a spiritual enterprise. shifting from a business enterprise to a spiritual enterprise. And that's why the efforts over this past year of further organizing our teams is really not a business decision. It's not about anything to do with organizing a business. It's about organizing spiritually. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. You see, our teams have an opportunity to meet together and to listen deeply to each other. So that's the first thing I believe. It's very important in our spiritual communities, listening deeply. And it's not a cognitive listening, it's listening with the heart. Listening with the heart. It's also about discovering what is possible together. Everything that we try doesn't always work, but we get to discover together ways of doing things, new projects, things that we can work on as a community. I think it's about us allowing some new things to arise. And while we have wonderful traditions, we need to constantly look at something new arising amongst us. Something new, something fresh. It's continuing to make this place, this unity of Fort Collins, a place where we all feel at home. And that's one of the things I believe that Sharon and I discovered when we arrived here last November. Actually, a year ago November. It's home. And I've had folks tell me over and over again when they walk through these doors, they feel at home. And that's because of you, not because of anything that we are doing organizationally. It's because of you. They feel at home. It's recognizing the presence of God. And I'm not talking about the presence of God in this building. It's about the presence of God within each and every individual that's sitting in these pews and each of you that are watching this service online. The presence of God. I believe if we really understood the presence of God, we'd be bowing to each other. And really, really taking in that presence that is so much a part of each and every one of you sitting here this morning. I'm going to quote Jesus here for a moment. Jesus, the master teacher, says, "Abide in me as I abide in God." Abide is an old-fashioned word. We don't use that very often. But it means to feel the connection. Do you feel the connection with each other? And sometimes we don't feel the presence of God. Sometimes there's things that disturb us, that cut us off from that recognition of that presence of God. And so we need to stand in the place where the presence of God can be felt coming from each and every one of us, to be an encourager, a coach, a presence where individuals cannot feel that presence. That means we must love each other unconditionally. That's hard to do sometimes, isn't it? Someone rubs us the wrong way and it's hard to love each other unconditionally. So regardless of what somebody says or what somebody does or someone offends us, that love that Jesus mentioned here about abiding means we love each other unconditionally. This is a place where we can let go of all of our fears. What's your fear? A fear of not being accepted? A fear of lack or limitation? A fear of that problem that seems to be looming in your life? This is a place where you can let go of that fear, whatever it might be. And it's a place where you can rewrite your story, We all have a story about what has happened in our life. I've told you some of my stories. Yes, I thought I was unlovable at one point in my life until I rewrote that story. Some of us need to rewrite our theology. What is God? What is God? Certainly not that judgmental old man in the sky that's going to punish us. We need to rewrite our story regarding our experience of Christianity or any other religion. Certainly there is something that has arisen in our experience in our life in our childhood religion that has been valuable to us and contributed to us. Rewrite our story, and we have that freedom here at this place called Unity of Fort Collins to do that. And we can share those stories. I'm going to read you a passage from the Gospel of John. And the reason I'm reading it, because in seminary, Sharon and I were very much exposed to something called servant leadership. It's about being a servant. And I don't think I believe in servant leadership anymore because of this. Jesus says, Gospel of John, I've told you these things for a purpose. This is my command, that you love one another. I'm no longer calling you servants, because servants don't understand what the master is thinking and planning. No, I have named you friends. I have named you friends. I have named you friends. Our primary role here at Unity of Fort Collins is to be a spiritual friend. Now, does that include the ministers? Are we some sage on the stage? Only on Thanksgiving. Gerald always manages to give us a word of humor. That's why he's such a good friend. But I have named you spiritual friends. Would you prefer a minister that comes in here on Sunday morning and gives you the most elaborate theological, deep thinking thought, or would you prefer your ministers to be spiritual friends?
Yeah, friends.
Something you may want to think about. Okay. Okay. But our primary role, every one of us, without exception, is to be spiritual friends. And your ministers, Sharon and I, we probably have more questions than answers. Yay, she says. We need help from the community. I've been through 3 seminaries and all this stuff. I got degrees and everything. But I need your help. We need to collaborate together. We need to collaborate with each other. All opinions, all thoughts, all ideas are okay at our table. So, going back to November of last year, imagine a church. Imagine a church that does not think of itself as primarily a worship gathering or a performance. Sometimes we think that Unity of Fort Collins happens at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. Can we expand that? Unity of Fort Collins happens all the time, in small gatherings and large gatherings, around coffee and at Starbucks, wherever. It's always happening. And we're spiritual friends relating to each other. Wouldn't that be a wonderful idea to imagine? Imagine a church that does not have a staff of seminary-led leaders, but where most of the leaders are bivocational. Every Wednesday, Julie and Ann and Sharon and I meet together. And you know, Julie and Ann are as much a very important, integral part of that conversation as we plan than Sharon and I. And how about you? Your voice is important. It's not just somebody who's graduated from seminary. I've had a lot of seat time, but that's about it. Imagine a church that does not have individuals, and we call them in seminary patriarchs and matriarchs, individuals running the church. We all have a voice. And I certainly bless those within some churches that are such strong leaders and they carry that church forward and they specify what's to be done and they've got an opinion on everything. Because many churches are put together, are composed of just that one person that keeps things going. But we don't have that here. We have everybody with a voice, everybody contributing. In fact, there's an article not too long ago that says 4 ways to not run your church and 1 way to. All right? And the 4 ways is no one individual, including the minister runs the church. We all have a voice. We don't want a personality. So many times there's a minister that's a personality, and people flock to hear his 20-minute message on Sunday morning. And someday that minister leaves and it all falls apart. A personality-driven church. An agenda-driven church. It's so easy to have an agenda other than loving one another. And the 4th one is a church that's entire effort is staying alive. The conversation, everything is about continuing to get more money, more people, more classes, more of something because they're afraid things are falling apart. And guess what? Churches with that as agenda tend to fall apart because that's where the energy is. Can you imagine a church where there's multiple ways to participate and belong? It's not only here, but we have individuals that are online with us. It might be an individual that just attends a class. There's multiple ways to participate here and belong without signing on the dotted line and saying you're a member and you have to take a class and so forth. There's multiple ways to be part of this community. Imagine a church where an individual doesn't have to do all of their serving or their learning under the church's umbrella. There's many opportunities in our community, online, in many ways to learn spiritually. And that's okay. We don't have some kind of monopoly on learning or serving. Imagine a church where at least half of the participants are online, spanning the globe. Right now, online, I guarantee you there's people from outside of this area of Colorado. I know of an individual that watches these services from Arizona, another one from California. In Sun City, we had people in England that watched our services. So our community is much bigger than what we're aware of. That's a healthy church. Imagine a church where we're unified by a primary spiritual practice, and that practice is loving one another. Every time we have to remind ourselves, I love you. You are my brother or sister spiritually. Imagine our church where there's a dynamic mix of faith traditions and ways to understand God, and none of them are diminished or threatened by the others. Imagine a church where children develop into leaders, and they're free to create their own forms and approaches to their faith tradition. Or how about imagining a church where there's a variety of mystical experiences? Dances of universal peace, almost Pentecostal in its expression. Or the other end of the spectrum, those opportunities where we sit in the silence and experience the presence of God. Well, there are some objections to some of this. Some individuals that have written on this subject say, who's going to pay for it? If we worry about where the money's going to come, if we are into lack and limitation, guess what happens? Lack and limitation shows up. But certainly this church is a generous church that supports its programs, and there's so many things that we can do together that don't cost anything at all. Who will guard against heresy? Let me tell you. You will. Who will guard against heresy? Who's going to keep us on the straight and narrow path within the framework of the unity message? Well, let me tell you something. There's nobody on this green earth that can do that, because that opportunity to experience various forms of spirituality is all around us. Just turn on your computer and go to Google. And there's no way that any church can limit your spiritual experience, nor do we want to here. And what happens if things unravel without a strong central organization and a charismatic minister? That's another fear thought. As you are the church, you are the ones that carry forth the work of our teams. You are the ones that contribute spirituality to each and every one of us. So in kind of closing here, what is Unity of Fort Collins anyway? I believe it's much more than we can define. You can have all of the church growth specialists come from Unity Worldwide Ministries, and they can share with you all kinds of theories. But you are the church. You are the ones that carry this ministry forward and create what has been created here week after week and day after day. Jesus said, we are the kingdom. The kingdom is within. I'm not sure I like that word kingdom. It might be a queendom, right? But the kingdom is the place where God shows up. Where God shows up. I am the place where God shows up. Can you say that with me? I am the place where God shows up. Yes. Amen. And sometimes our efforts will thrive, and sometimes they will fail, but we are a community. I know recently there's been some discussion, community, with the unity part of that word. We are a community. And more than anything else, despite any changes, I'm thinking back, it seems like in the past, whenever there was a change of spiritual leadership, several left because they preferred the previous spiritual leader. But can we create a community together where the only thing that's important is the community? Not who's standing here on Sunday morning, or who sings what song, or how we organize, or how we do anything. We are a community. bonded to each other. And so, if we prayerfully, humbly, lovingly align with the movement of spirit in the world, do you think that this will be at any time a failing enterprise? I don't think so. It can't be a failing enterprise when we align with spirit as it moves in our world. It might be a weird church, but it'll never fail. And I'm going to read you just one paragraph as we close here. I found this just this week because our Thursday class was talking about a history of Christianity. And this is a book that I wrote at one point in time for a class on that subject. And I forgot I even wrote these words. Religion is therefore not what we have always thought it to be. Religion is not a system of belief. It is not a catalog of revealed truth. It is not an activity designed to control behavior, to reward virtue, or to punish vice. Religion is, rather, a human attempt to process the God experience, which breaks forth from our own depths and wells up constantly within us. The only divine mission in life that a church could possibly have is to open people to a recognition that the ground of their very being is holy, and that when they are in touch with that holy ground of being, they can share in God's creation by giving life and love and being to others. We hold this vision with others. It's a new thought, and yes, it is also an old thought. As old as humanity itself. It is a thought held by the greatest of spiritual teachers and continues to arise within many faiths and traditions. So that's all I have to say. I hope, Ann, that was not too much of a... What'd you call it? It's not a wild rumpus, I don't think. But I hope you're not disappointed.
Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a consciousness. Instead of peacefulness. Know that God is always there. And every thought's indeed a prayer.
So let's all get comfortable in our seats. I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and just breathe in and breathe out. And so we bring to mind in this moment, in this sacred moment, a sacredness, a thought of gratefulness, a thought of love. We are one with a community centered right here in Fort Collins, but reaching out throughout the world. We are that community. Just think of that thought for a moment. I am a thought of a community where God shows up. And so I feel that presence of Spirit in me, in this room, in this place. I am the place where God shows up. And in the spirit of gratefulness, in this moment, I shine my light throughout each and every individual that I touch within the realm of this community. We are a community. We are spiritual friends on a journey. We are the undefinable. All things are possible. All things are possible. And so we affirm that in our lives personally and as a community, in the name and nature of the Christ presence. Amen.
May the blessing of God be upon me. May the blessing illuminate your heart now and forever. May the blessings God rest upon us. May the peace abide in us. May us illuminate us now and forever. Now and forever.
So we have the ushers come forward. And as we come to the time in our service where we hold our offering in our hand, and we bless it with these words on the screen. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.
Thank you so much, Jim. That was a very beautiful talk. I love the message that we are all together. We are all one congregation, unity. This is a song I wrote, actually. Could I get a little more voice on the monitor, please? I wrote this for the gods of the river, and I love, just kind of going through day-to-day life, because that's what it comes down to.
It's so easy to get caught up in elementary stuff, and day-to-day living's got me feeling more like giving up than picking up and carrying on. What we resist persists, and my struggle leaves me breathless, spits me out a stressed mess, and I sink with what I cling to, indeed I do. So when I feel that life is pulling me under, it's the best I can do to keep my head above water. I just sit back and listen to that current urging me, teaching me. She says you got to go with the river, flow with the river, got to let your spirit know it's at home in the flow. You got to go with the river, flow with the river, got to let your spirit know it's at home in the flow. And straight up breaks that levee you could never quite be ready for. I said you're kicking and you're screaming and you wish that you were dreaming. Is this all you've been living for? I said you're giving it all your strength and it's taking up all your strength. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? So when you feel that life is ripping you under, it's the best you can do to keep your head above water. You just sit back and listen to that current urging you, teaching you. Go with the river, flow with the river, got to let your spirit know it's at home in the flow. You got to go with the river, flow with the river, got to let your spirit know it's at home in the flow. And when you catch that peaceful eddy, you got to dip your toes in the river. You got to dig 'em down to that cool, clean bottom. Go down to that cool, clean river. Praise the deep woe. You got to let go with the river. You got to let your spirit know it's at home in the flow. And praise the deep, praise the deep, praise the clean, clean water.
Well, thank you, Elise, and want to also thank Leanne for her reading today. And it's been a good day, and we have lunch over at, where is it? Okay, you're all invited to lunch. The church continues outside of our service. Do we have any children back there? No children back there? Okay, I guess it's time to just circle up and close our service with a prayer of protection and the peace song.
did very well, and I.
So together, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Yes, there's peace on earth. Got your tempo better.